Hello, dear friends. Star Wars. Oh, I'm sorry. I was just waiting for all of the arguing to subside. Are we good? Great. Okay, so here's the thing. I don't have a whole lot of experience with the Star Wars franchise. I thought that might make for a fresh and interesting perspective on the subject. When I was really young, I remember that my mother and sisters brought home these movies from the video store. I can't say that I remember a whole lot about them, bits and pieces. What I do remember comes in flashes. A young woman chained up beside some sort of slug-like monster that I was really afraid of. A young man searching for something in the middle of a swamp, guided by a smaller creature. A brother and sister reunited at last, after a series of unfortunate misunderstandings, to put it one way. A forest of bear-like creatures, an iconic reveal, a heartbreaking battle, a tearful death. But the one scene that particularly stood out to me, more than most, was a clear demonstration of the amazing connection between brother and sister. A connection so strong that it allowed for one to sense when the other was in danger or in need, the years that had separated them only serving to strengthen the bond that was perhaps never really meant to flourish, at least not by the forces and circumstances that had kept them apart since birth. Thus, a spaceship turns around, and a sister saves her brother from a fatal end. I almost want to say that he was hanging off of something in space. I can't say for sure. Like I said, bits and pieces. I hadn't really given much thought to it for quite some time after that. Science fiction was never really my thing. It still isn't. I mean, they were just movies, right? No, looking back, I'd have to say that I had no real concept of just how important these films would become to cinema as a whole. I had just seen the original Star Wars trilogy, and I didn't have a clue. Imagine that. It wasn't until long after the prequels came out in their entirety that I actually considered taking a look at them. I realized that I wanted to see the franchise through to the end, but it was about more than that. As an adult, I haven't been much for going to the movie theater. I may have gone to, oh, I don't know, maybe about 10 to 15 movies or so since the time I was little. That's not very much. The fact is that I've started counting and maybe even regretting these missed opportunities. I'll get back to that in a bit. I've been on YouTube for about a year now, and in that time, I've had the opportunity to learn about these franchises that I knew little to nothing about, apart from maybe the odd film and television series growing up. I feel like I've learned quite a bit about the fans of these franchises as well. I've listened to dialogue, debates, reviews, critiques, and I like what I hear, for the most part. What I don't like to hear, however, is when debating turns to arguing and criticisms at one time constructive become solely negative and therefore ineffective. I understand that these are beloved characters and storylines that we're talking about here, most of which are spanning decades, and I'd even go as far as to say that it is in fact thanks to the fans, critics, and reviewers alike that I do understand just how significant these heroes of fiction and fantasy actually are. But I think what needs to be understood is that different visionaries have different vision. It appears that it's the different vision with which some fans seem to take issue. The argument that I hear quite a lot is usually a variation on this is not what I'm used to, or this is not the way it's supposed to be. A myriad of this is not what I wanted, essentially. Okay, so what? So what if it wasn't what you wanted it to be or how you expected things to turn out? It got you talking, didn't it? It got you engaged in conversation with the like minded fans over a franchise that you hold close to your heart, didn't it? I think that may very well be one of the keys of the franchise, quite frankly. To keep us interested, to keep us talking. Is it a conscious decision by the creative people involved? We may never know. But one thing's for certain, that's the effect. Taking the time to dissect and analyze characters and plot points is what brings this fanbase together. I've seen it many times. Now, whether or not the various twists and turns in these storylines are simply devices to move the plot forward, meant to fill up space because there was no conscious decision on which direction to take, and yes, I do realize that there's a growing concern among many fans and critics, or otherwise completely intentional. You must admit that that's an excellent pull for any audience. It really is a credit to all those involved that we are consistently engaged in these stories. If not for the men and women both behind the scenes and in front of the cameras, we would never have been given the chance to see these epics come to life on screen. Whether you agree with the vision or direction or you don't, you can't deny that. In the interest of time, I'm choosing to focus my attention on the creator and the actors of the franchise simply because I find that it's mostly their performance in these films that are the most criticized by fans. It is in no way meant to be disrespectful or to say that other roles in these films are unimportant. Set and costume design, light, sound, and computer technicians, special effects, stunt coordination, etc., are each roles without which Star Wars just wouldn't be Star Wars. These teams and individuals who work tirelessly to make sure that vision is reflected in the atmosphere, the overall feel of these films, deserve recognition and support by the fans and the critics for all the work that they do and all the effort that they put in to create something special each and every day. That being said, my aim is to show the utmost respect to the creation of these films, regardless of how one film may have been received in comparison to the other, and I think that the most effective way to do that would be by trilogy. I may not know a lot about these films, I haven't seen the last three at all, but I'll work with what I've got. I think we can all agree that the creation of the Star Wars universe as a whole was a massive undertaking, especially when deciding to create a prequel series years after what will forever be known as the original trilogy was made. Now, I don't know whether the idea was to purposely release these trilogies in the order that they were, or if it was simply an issue of timing or a budgeting concern or something else entirely. But it is what it is. And it took guts. Come on, admit it. The story's already been established as an epic, but we're going to retrace our steps to fill in the blanks 22 years later? Okay, some of you may be thinking, that's impressive and all, but what about that character? I'm getting to him. Relax. I think it's time that we saw the prequels in a more positive light, instead of what could have, or in the case of the opinions of some fans, should have been. For one thing, you have to give it to these actors. These are all fresh faces that are coming into a well established and well loved series, and they're expected to play these iconic characters who've already been formed in the minds and hearts of many a fan years prior. Are you telling me that the responsibility of playing the part of one who would become quite arguably one of the most iconic villains in cinematic history during two different stages of his formative years is a no pressure role for two actors, let alone one? And what about being tasked with the responsibility of playing the mother of the two main characters of the original trilogy, one whose fate was already sealed in order to move the main story forward? What about the role of mentor for both the would be villain in his youth and the quote unquote hero of the main trilogy? Oh, and make sure to act out these very important roles just so as to satisfy both the die-hard fans, the ones who've shown nothing less than undying devotion to the franchise for years, and the critics alike. That's a lot of pressure. Now, I know that I promised to talk a little bit about that character, the one that not a lot of people liked. Not even his creator, from my understanding. I'll be honest, I saw him as just another character. A pretty annoying character, I'll give that, but just another character. I guess it's because I didn't see him as having any kind of real significance to the story. And maybe that's how others felt as well, I don't know. The way I see it is that if even the creator of this character wasn't particularly happy with him, something must have gone wrong somewhere along the way. This can happen from time to time. Perhaps what was written on paper didn't translate well onto the screen. Alternatively, maybe the whole process was rushed because of time constraints. Therefore, there wasn't really an opportunity to give proper focus to the character, especially if too much story was packed into one, if not all, of these films. Whatever the reason, the character didn't work. So what? Not everything works out perfectly, no matter how much you want it to. I'm sure the creative team behind these films was just as disappointed as you were, maybe even more so. I really think that we're missing something here. Instead of focusing on what the creator of this phenomenal saga has not achieved, shouldn't we be focusing instead on what he has? And what he has achieved with this universe that he's created is nothing short of incredible. As a matter of fact, the Star Wars prequel series has gotten such a bad reputation from some of the fans that I'm not quite ready to let this go and move on just yet. The truth is that I don't think that all of the actors that were involved in the series have been given enough credit, nor do I feel that I've done them justice with anything that I've said thus far. Whether or not you're a fan of all or any of their performances, the fact is that these men and women have given not only of their time and effort, but also of their expertise and skill, their commitment and dedication to story, to film, and to their chosen profession besides, to be part of something larger, an epic that has entertained and sparked fans' imagination for years. I'm not saying that fans of the series have to like everything that these actors have done, but a little respect and appreciation would probably be appreciated. Moving along the same track, I want to talk a little bit about the actors involved in the original trilogy, which is now technically the second part of this current saga. I may have talked a little bit about it earlier, but I never really gave any kind of focus to the actors involved. As far as characters of fiction and fantasy are concerned, all the bases seem to be covered here. Think about it. You got the hero, the villain, the princess, who is anything but helpless, thank you. There's even a semi sort of hero. All the bases, plus a little extra. I think that the best way for me to get my point across is to take these four main characters and try my best to liken them to the actors that portray them in this particular series in one way or another, some of whom make an appearance in the trilogy that follows. First, we look to the hero, as is so often the case in these tales. We first see this hero as a young man, fitting as most fans have grown up alongside him. As our beloved hero, he shows strength, determination, commitment, pride, love, and hope in the face of adversity. This character didn't start out as a warrior, and it was never his intention to be the hero. But as he began to realize what's at stake, he does what needs to be done and becomes who he was always fated to be. As an actor, it seems to me that he's always been committed to his craft, in whatever role that he's played, be it live action or animated, showing that devotion to his fans time and time again, to put forward an impeccable performance with pride, passion, strength, and resilience. After hearing all sorts of commentary from fans and reviewers over the years, talking about this film, this franchise, that franchise, I can only imagine the strength of will and the courage that it takes to balance the good with the bad in the industry that he has chosen. He really is something else. I think we all know that. Let's move on to the one I've dubbed the semi-sort of hero. Initially not really an active participant in anyone else's cause but his own, or even willing to admit that being the knight in shining armor was his thing, this character proves it to be the case nonetheless. This incredible actor has given us so much over the years, and continues to do so, proving that he's got so much more to offer. He's not done quite yet. Some may know him from his adventurer archaeologist reluctant hero, yes, again, role. I know the character fondly, but that's not the one that I remember most. Others may know him as an officer of the future, a man accused of a crime that he would have never even dreamed of committing, or even the brother of a hopeless playboy, a film remade from black and white. All fond memories as well, but not ones that I remember best. The character that I remember is from a film that I had seen when I was much younger, about the survivor of a near-fatal accident, rendering him helpless against the whispers and the sneers of a fair-weather friendly society. Not the main theme of the film by any means, but significant nonetheless. The scene that had affected me the most was that of a dinner party, or some form of social gathering, where the main character was unfortunate enough to overhear his so-called friends and colleagues making hurtful remarks about his current condition, and what a burden that he's become to his family. The look on his face, the hurt, the shame, the anger, the guilt. I've heard of all of this type of feedback before in my life, and I really felt for the character. It's painful when the realization hits that once you're not useful to certain individuals, or to society for that matter, just how easily one or the other can turn their back on you. With the films that I have seen, it's been my experience that truly great actors have the ability to convey the strongest of emotions to their audiences and their fan base through their performances, allowing them to feel as though they're the ones going through the experience. I'll be talking a lot more about that if and when I ever get around to talking about my favorite actor somewhere down the line. It's a powerful thing for sure. It's more than that though. Actors such as these, consciously or not, can sometimes, if not most often, shed a much needed light on matters affecting either the individual or concerning society as a whole. The best way I think that this needs to be achieved is to be integrated into the plot so as not to be seen as just the moral of the story. It could be just me, of course. After all, almost anything can be open to interpretation, especially in film. But I see that all of these films speak to the courage that it takes one to believe that someone can be something more than others have given him credit for, or that he has given himself credit for, or both. I believe that this actor's achievement in this and his continued success are due in large part to his talent, skill, charisma, and to his love and dedication to both his profession and to his many supporters. He is also quite something. I think we can all agree on that. Okay, so who's left? The villain and the princess. The truth is that I can't really recall that many villains as tragic figures in the cinema of recent years, except maybe in their own minds. But the prequels did somewhat force us to at least consider that as a possibility. In this trilogy, however, he's all grown up, and there's no question in my mind that he is 100% responsible for his actions. But still, we were previously introduced to the level of manipulation that he endured as a young man. Maybe that wasn't conveyed to the audience quite as well as it should have been, but it was pretty clear that that was the case nonetheless. Here, he thrives on death and destruction. Here, he's cruel. Here, he's completely without remorse. Here, he is evil. A villain. Until he's not. The smallest glimmer of hope, a chance for redemption, begins to arise when he sees his child's life in danger. In the moment that stood between his son's life and possible death, perhaps he was taken back to a time when his younger self was forced to make another split-second decision. A turn to the darker side of his personality in order to save the lives of those he loved yet again, or so he had thought, foolishly. Although his character may have shown minor glimpses of softening towards his son during the second half of the final film of this trilogy, from what I remember anyway, his turn towards life, I guess would be a good way to put it, seems to be just as quick as it was when he turned against her in the first place. Perhaps that was the point. Perhaps the seemingly abrupt change from good to evil was a lot more of an intentional creative decision than we had originally thought. It may still have benefited from a stronger, better build-up, I suppose, while still appearing just as abrupt. But who knows? To take the role of such an iconic villain, I imagine that one would have to have a rather commanding presence. When I think about this particular character, the one thing that I remember quite clearly above anything else is his voice. A booming voice that swept across the room, instilling fear in whomever his attention was directed at. This character was a force to be reckoned with, and the choice for an actor had to be made accordingly. In this particular scenario, it wasn't the role that made the actor famous, but the other way around. With many, many credits to his name even before the Star Wars franchise first appeared on screen, is there any wonder that an actual icon of stage and screen was selected for what was to become an iconic role? It's clear to me that the casting decision made by the creative team when selecting an actor for the role of the villain with the commanding voice was not only a good one, but one of foresight. This actor went on to play a king twice. Once as the pompous and egocentric king of a fictitious African country, the other as king of the jungle in an animated feature film. It may very well be that new generations of fans were first introduced to this extraordinary actor through the sound of his voice in this franchise or in either of those other films. I'd say that it was worth it if only for that reason, giving fans the chance to delve deeper into his incredible career, garnering the respect and admiration that he deserves, both as an actor and as an individual. The last character that I wanted to talk about in this part of the saga is that of the princess. Again, I spoke a little bit about her earlier on, but I don't think that I said quite enough. Admittedly, I don't know how much I remember about the character. It was a long time ago since I saw the original trilogy, but I will do my very best. All at once unassuming, when the princess is first introduced, one quickly realizes that there's actually much more to her than meets the eye. She is quick, both in wit and in action, capable and resourceful, proving herself as time wore on and as the threat to the universe became much more imminent. If I were to choose one word that could link both the princess and the actress, I suppose that it would have to be resilience. During the course of the original set of these films, the princess character never once left her own fate to chance, or completely in the hands of others, choosing instead to fight alongside them, playing an active role in her own survival as well as that of her people. She truly lived up to the word leader. Was it always easy? No, of course not. As a true leader, however, she always knew that all was not lost, never backing down from fighting for what she knew to be right. She sounds like a solid role model to me for a mere work of fiction. Truth be told, I was very excited to have the opportunity to talk about this actress, but I was also hesitant and quite nervous. Knowing how difficult this part would probably be for a lot of people, knowing how loved she is by her fans and all who knew her, knowing what an impact that she had and still does on those around her, I wanted to make sure that when I spoke about her, I did so appropriately, with all the dignity and respect that she deserves. So, here goes nothing. Similar to that of a character that was introduced to us more than 40 years ago, it's safe to assume that we've all experienced personal and or professional setbacks at one time or another. Setbacks which we perhaps did not expect. For many of us, it's hard enough to deal with any challenges that we may be facing on our own. But what if the whole world was there to watch her entire life unfold, watching and waiting to witness achievement, but also feeling entitled and perhaps even justified in passing judgment? The fact that I chose the same word, resilience, to describe this actress as I did for her co star and on screen sibling in these films a short while ago is not lost on me. I did that on purpose. Unfortunately, being in the public eye doesn't always allow one to retain any amount of privacy. Sure, some have accomplished it, but not enough. That needs to change. Not unlike her on screen personality in the saga, however, this actress took her situation and made it what she wanted it to be. Now, I refuse to delve into her private life. There's been enough of that already, and you know how I feel about that. I know my own life, no one else's, and I'll keep it that way. The one thing that I do know is that whatever challenges that this exceptional individual may have faced in her life, she met them head on and treated them with as much dignity and respect as any of her triumphs and accomplishments, showing true commitment to herself and to her own well being. I've seen that struggle with commitment. I'm sure that there are those who struggle with it their whole lives, never to actually find and hold on to it. The character, the actress, I have to wonder who the real role model is. Moving forward to the most recent trilogy, I don't really have that much to go on, as I have yet to see it myself. Except, of course, for what I've heard from fans and reviewers on the internet. Things like which characters are new to the Star Wars franchise, a resurgence of our most beloved characters, who will be feared to what end, and of course, who may or may not have a grandparent grandchild relationship with whom. Yeah, that's right, I know about that too. It would have been impossible for me to be online, interacting in the way that I am, and not know about it. Actually, from what I understand, there was so much negativity around this plot twist, if that's what you'd call it, I don't even know, that explanations were given seemingly to appease fans. It was planned, it wasn't planned. Who even knows what the original idea was at this point? Well, planned or not, I can see why fans may have found it to be a bit unbelievable. Although I'm not too sure if it was the revelation itself that fans had the bigger problem with, or the way in which it was presented. A little from column A, a little from column B, I would imagine. Earlier on, I had started talking about how I really hadn't gone to the movie theater that often growing up, and maybe even considering that to be something of a missed opportunity. I began thinking about that the more I started watching the content creators that I've been following. Listening to them talk about their love of film, and of all things creative, really, has just made me want to see more for myself. It's made me want to reevaluate my reasons for not wanting to go out to the movies as much. Now, whether or not the pros will outweigh the cons for me, completely and inevitably, is another story. I did go see a movie earlier this year, however. I must confess that I didn't really have a good time with this particular movie. but I'd say that it was worth it for the experience. Speaking of which, those I follow have inspired me in more than this. I'm actually compiling a list of movies and television series. Those I have seen, those I haven't but I'm interested in seeing, and those I've only seen partially, and whether or not I'm interested in seeing them in their entirety. This brings me back to what I said earlier about wanting to see the Star Wars franchise through until the end. So I thought it was about more than just seeing it for its own sake. I knew nothing about the technology that goes into the making of a film, or about when a film's darker than it needs to be, or about sound design, or animation, or CGI, or how to spot a barely believable action scene, or else a relationship between two characters that seems to appear out of nowhere. The list goes on and on. Don't get me wrong, I don't always notice these things, but now that I know to look for them, I point them out when I do. Just because these things exist, however, doesn't necessarily mean that they reflect badly on the film. Either way, I find that it enhances the experience for me. I owe a lot of that experience to what I've learned from the reviewers that I follow here on YouTube. You know what it's like? It's exactly like the extras that come with most DVDs these days. Someone once told me that he didn't like watching them because it spoils the movie and ruins the experience for him. I couldn't disagree more. It doesn't ruin it for me, it enhances it. The more we watch, i.e., the more we do, the more we educate ourselves, just like with anything else. All the films on my list are worth the experience. And if the Star Wars franchise was simply another set of films as well, it would be well worth it just for the experience. But maybe, just maybe, the Star Wars are not just another set of films. Okay, so this did end up going on a lot longer than I had initially planned, but I feel like I said what needed to be said. By now, I'm guessing that you've realized that this discussion wasn't meant to be as much about whether or not a particular film or scene is good or bad, as it was about showing some much needed respect and admiration to the actors as well as the entire creative team that have made and continue to make these films what they are. I can see, and I hope that you can too, that it's not so easy to make something look natural on screen. It takes a lot of time, effort, dedication, and passion for this craft. There's a lot of great talent out there. As fans and as audience members, we are extremely lucky. I mean, do you guys realize that? We are lucky to be able to see that whenever we want by purchasing a movie ticket or turning on a television set or DVD players or VCRs before that, joining both character as well as actor on their journey. I think that we sometimes take that for granted. We shouldn't. Over the next year, I have several topics lined up. I want to do something similar to what I did here on the Marvel Cinematic Universe at some point, if I can. Whether it will be as a video or not, I haven't decided yet. I want to see if I can talk about my favorite actor, as I had mentioned, favorite music, and maybe start giving away sections from my book, which I have yet to complete, perhaps completing it in the process. I have a lot of fun things in store for you guys. I've also finally decided on presenting all of my videos going forward on my blog page so that you can get a better idea of how my writing style may be able to help you with your videos, businesses, and or personal endeavors, such as essay writing or whatever else that you may need. One more thing before I go. Our world has been affected in an extremely negative way this year, to say the very least. Many people have decided to act, a lot of which has been to promote awareness and prevention. Well, I would be remiss if I didn't address this issue as well. Please wash your hands and stay at home. I want all of you to be well and to stay safe. Family, friends, neighbors, and everyone else around you. If there ever was a time to stick together, a time to show that we care about each other, to show what we're made of, this is it. The time is now. All together now. Stay at home, menu maspiti. Thanks, everyone.